can set up separate LLCs for each entity, but it gets too cumbersome and too much. I suggest one LLC, and if you really want asset protection, we have the best asset protection program. I'm not telling you because I'm presenting it and I've used it. I've used it, I created it because it is the best structure. And then we have attorneys that do it for you, whereby you actually have, let's say, that LLC that owns one property, second property, third property. This one you're gonna flip, this one you're holding. And whatever equity you have, the 500,000 that hopefully as you buy property becomes 550, 600, 700,000 equity, you're building that equity and you have cash flow. What we do is we set up a Wyoming LLC for you. And that's sitting in Wyoming because that's where the LLCs were created. And we fund it. We say that you're gonna put money in it, but you don't have the money right now. We're gonna capitalize it for, let's say, 600,000 or whatever equity you have in the properties. And then we put a promissory note. I promise to put in that LLC the 500,000 later. And then we put a promissory note secured against these properties. So you have a loan from the bank as a first lien or first credit line, mortgage, and then you also have a lien payable to the actual Wyoming LLC that you own in a living trust that flows through to you and your loved ones. This way, if anybody trying to sue you, they're going to see that you have a debt to the bank and that you have a debt to some Wyoming LLC. There's nothing for them to go after. They settle with your insurance. And so that's extremely powerful as a structure. You can look it up at kmagb.com. Maybe Ashley, if you can put it right here in the
I did.
Thank you, in the chat. So now, how do you get the best loans? So you're saying I'm afraid of bankruptcy. You gotta shop then for what's called non-recourse loans. Non-recourse loans are usually offered by some portfolio lenders. What's a portfolio lender? Is a lender that gives you the loan and holds it, because some other lenders give you the loan and sell it in the secondary market. But a portfolio lender, they give you the loan, and there are many commercial banks that do that, a lot of them locally. I always like to go to local banks when you're doing deals in a certain area because they have special programs, credit unions can charge you better terms, etc. And these portfolio lenders can say, okay, we're gonna loan you, but it's gonna be secured on the property itself. So when they do that, they're gonna ask you for 20 to 25% down payment, which is what I calculated for a $2 million asset. I told you 500,000 will buy you $2 million, because if you want it non-recourse, that means the only recourse they have is they will take what's in the LLC. Your credit will stay clean. So expect also a higher rate. The rate could be, even when rates drop, your rate will be around 7 to 9%. I actually had a chat with a lender just the other day and I said, if somebody just set up the LLC and they want to buy non-recourse and all this, and this was in Wisconsin, by the way, and the lender said it's going to be 2 points higher and we want at least 25% down, and that property got a cash flow really well, like the debt service coverage ratio, they want it to be very secure. They said because that buyer is shifting the risk to us and we don't want the risk. We want to loan the money, we're not partners, we want to get returns, and that's it. So look for portfolio lenders. Expect to put slightly more money, expect to put it under the LLC, expect to pay slightly higher interest rates. That's the cost of you having some peace of mind. Something goes wrong, they can take the LLC, but sadly, you'll also lose your down payment. So do not think if I structure it right, I'm eliminating risk. The risk is eliminated by the asset itself and the cash flow it brings. Very important. That's why if you ask me what would I do with $500,000 right now if I were you, I would actually go for the single tenant buildings that are vacant, or a little strip mall that has a couple units. I can act vacant and I can just put it under contract, line up some tenants, buy it, because that's what will give me that $500,000 will be $1 million in no time. Before the end of 2026. If you understand how the program of the single tenant buildings or little strip malls work, you can't help but making money. We're setting up people with a fund right now. They started this on single tenant. They did strip mall. They own a shopping mall. Then they came to me. Now we're setting them up with a fund. We're trying to close the fund for them before the end of the year. These guys went from a credit line and an idea to listening to my YouTubes and coming joining stuff to now $10 million in transactions this year. I mean, it just, once you get a momentum, it's unbelievable. But what you're doing is good, and you can do it with residential, you can do it with storage facilities, you're on the right track. Now, in case you don't want to go to the portfolio lenders, your other choice would be to ask every time I buy a property, I ask the seller, would you consider seller financing? Okay, I used to say, would you carry a note? Then I realized some people have no clue about real estate at all, and they think they're gonna have to carry something. And what's a note? I remember, I kid you not, I was talking to a couple, they were older people, I was buying a property, and they said, I'll give you the price you want, but would you consider carrying a note? Now, I know their first language is Spanish, and they looked at each other, and the lady was sitting like this, and she said, we can't carry anything, my back hurts. I never forgot this. Now, I looked at the daughter who spoke English fluently, and she said, Mom, we're going to talk to our attorney, Segarra. And I said, okay, can I talk to Mr. Segarra for you? And I had to explain to them that you're going to carry the financing. And I realized that the best convincing that you can do to somebody is when you're really trying to do a win-win, because all you have to do is educate them. I said, look, if I give you the cash now at $1.2 million, you're gonna actually take the cash, put it in the bank at 2 or 3%. Maybe you get 4%. I'm willing to pay you 6%. And they thought like, oh, how do we get that? Well, I'll give you $200,000 upfront, and then you're gonna carry $1 million. That means I will owe you. And the guy said, but I'm not a bank, I'm just an individual. I used to be a police officer. This is my life saving. I explained, that's wonderful, sir. I'll talk to your attorney who will explain it to you. So you will tell a seller, this is what's in it for you. You will have the income, it will be secured by the property. It's a big win-win because you can probably put less down payment. You can maybe negotiate at 5%. I'm closing on a deal actually about January 15 or so. It's a small, very small deal, but the seller, I told him, I'll give you interest. I'll pay you interest on the small amount left. And the broker, or on the conference call, she said, yeah, well, will you pay 5%? It will be better than the bank, because she saw the benefit of him getting 5%. And I said, yes, how about 5 years? And just before he says 5 years too long, I said, but I want prepayment penalty because I may pay it in less than 2 years. And he said, oh, okay, then 5 years. I said, so we'll write it for 60 months, interest-only payment at 5%. But I have the right to prepay it anytime during the 5 years. What an advantage. I mean, this is, so always use the seller financing or private money idea to ease your way into the properties. One final thing I want to mention. If you listened to me before, you know that I like to set up entities and then build credit on the entities. When I was talking to that lender for a property in Wisconsin, he said, is the LLC just created, or have they operated with it, and have they built any credit under it? Now, how do you set up an LLC and build credit? How do you set up a C Corp and build credit? You set up the LLC, which you can do it yourself, really. I mean, there are many attorneys do it, but you can go to Inc. 123 and set up an LLC and all this, and you can, just get a standard operating agreement and clean up some clauses. And I have attorneys in-house, so I've done a lot of things in-house, then I send it to my attorney, tweak some things. But the thing is, you set up an LLC, you have an FEIN number, the federal tax ID number, and you can literally go put a deposit of some money into the LLC bank account that you set up. You show them the certificate of ownership and everything, and then you can borrow against that certificate. There is a whole training I've done on this, and if anybody needs it, you can shoot. Well, actually, you want to send them that video to everybody? It's like an hour video that you can see how to set up an entity and build credit on it. And we go to one bank, deposit, let's say $50,000. If you have it, you have 500,000, but you can deposit 50. And then you go to the commercial loan department and say, I have a CD here for $50,000. Would you loan me 50? They loan you against 100% collateral. They don't even run your credit. And you pay a spread difference on the taxes, on the interest rate would be like 2%. When you do the payments, get the CD for 6 months, do the payments on time for 6 months, then then you pay off the CD. You can repeat the process in several banks. Like you put the first bank, Bank of America, you put 50,000 in the bank account of the LLC, you borrow 50,000. Now that you borrowed, you have a cashier check from the bank, you go to Wells Fargo and you deposit 50 and you borrow 50. And then you go to Chase Bank and you go to the credit union and all this. So you have 5, 6 of these going on. So it's like 300,000 showing on the LLC credit, and you have history of paying on time for 6 months or 4 months or 5 months and then pay off earlier. It shows great credit for the LLC. That will give you a huge leverage so you can get the loans under the LLC at lower interest rate. Check the portfolio lenders, check seller financing, see if actually after a while you can go back to the bank and lower your interest as in like refinance with the same lender, so there's no prepayment penalty. And if you use the structure we give you for the actual asset protection, you'll be sitting pretty with good cash flow and manage the properties, make sure you're involved. A problem is as big as you do not look at it, as you do not confront it. When I do, every now and then somebody wants me to help them with their business, their investments. All I do in my coaching or advice when they pay me $500 an hour to go on a call is I listen to them carefully, and all I identify is what areas in their life or in their business they do not wish to confront. And once I identify that and I have them confront it and we talk about how they're going to actually have a plan to solve that and address it, as uncomfortable as it may be, guess what happens? The problem dissolves. A problem is as big as you do not confront it, whether at home, in your life, in your business, in your investments. Deal with it. And sometimes you want to deal with it. You want to sell that property, and it's not happening. But once you stay focused on it, it dissolves over time and the solution comes. Best of luck with your $500,000. Would love to hear about what you're going to do later. I went into a lot of details on this because that's hopefully a problem you will all have. I have 500,000 to $1 million that I want to invest. How can I do it right? Okay, all the best.